I don't know if you guys have listened to the last podcast I did with Casey, but we touched on AI, and that was quite interesting. But this time we're going to go specific, and I think I do have a lot of people that have asked me this question, but I think you'd be the expert to talk about that with. So we're talking about AI and investment in AI. What type of AI to invest in, maybe, and also I think you mentioned personal AI, which is like how to actually, start prepping for your life towards using AI, because that's inevitable.
It is.
Okay, so give us the gist.
Okay. So as far as financial investing, usually that's the most common definition of that term is what do I do with my money to make some kind of income or grow my wealth? So right out of the gate, my suggestion would be in chip manufacturers like NVIDIA, anybody, and I think there's maybe 9 companies right now that are all in this race, not just for faster and better GPUs. GPU is graphical processing unit, which is different than your central processing unit of your computer, which is a CPU. So these are 2 very distinct differences of chips. So chip manufacturers who are making GPUs or whatever, it's called parallel processing.
But you think that these companies are not going anywhere?
No, they've got.
So who do we have? We have NVIDIA. Who else? Who are the biggest ones right now?
Well, Intel, obviously. There's other very wealthy companies that are starting their own chips, like Google. Right. They're building their own chips now. And then there's a handful of, I guess you can call it like the 7 dwarfs. A lot of folks who are spending a lot of time and money on R&D, but really haven't gotten much market share. But you don't know that they're not going to have a breakthrough in parallel processing, which is what's critical. So I just want to take a note because CPUs are sequential processing and GPUs will take a job, split it over 1,000 different channels and process it all at once and then collect the answer. So parallel processing is where most, if not all, of the AI applications are moving to because they don't necessarily need to be sequential processing. That's traditional programming where you have a top-down program. Programming started with line numbers, line 10, line 20, line 30, and it went in order. However, one of the biggest insights that NVIDIA had was back in the 90s processing video games. And they saw that like 5% of code was doing 90% of the processor work. That was the graphics. So that was the dawn of GPUs. So they pulled that piece out of the program and they said, let's just parallel process this. And that's how NVIDIA started its parallel processing GPU. Took the workload off the computer entirely. And that's why we have really good graphics today. That's why we can do that today is because of NVIDIA's vision back then. I think, and I just saw another interview for the gentleman who...
Hold on. So what you're saying is basically what? Let's say I have, I don't know, $5,000.
I see where you're going. Let me give you a better example.
Go for it.
Let's say you're a lawn care service and you have 50 lawns to mow. You can do one at a time in order, or you can just call a bunch of other people and do all 50 at once. So you can be done in an hour, all 50, or you're going to go through every one. You're going to be done in 2 weeks, 3 weeks. Okay. So that's the difference between parallel processing and sequential processing. Right. And I was really big into this environment because a large part of my background comes from high performance computing or HPC. And these are these $500 million supercomputing clusters.
Okay, talk to me like I don't know anything about investing.
Okay,
we're going to simplify it again. You have, let's say, 7 to 10 companies, major ones.
Yeah.
I want to invest. I don't know anything about the stock market.
Right.
I want to invest.
Okay.
Who do I invest in? Do I break it up into all 7 companies? Do I look at it like, just put money in it and forget about it? Kind of like what people are recommending with Bitcoin? Or is it, like, what's the approach in general?
So you always want to hedge your bets in investing. So I would pick at least 3. And it would be a piece of your investment portfolio, not the whole thing. Because you don't know if another DeepSeek or something like that is going to come out that's going to disrupt.
That's what I was asking. So there's no assurances here at all.
Well, there's no assurances investing. Right. Yeah, in the stock market. Okay. It has its own animal instincts. But I'd pick the 3 to 5 leaders and evenly distribute amongst them. And traditional investing advice, never have an emotional stake in any one investment. Just add it to your portfolio. And if it goes through the roof, I mean, $1,000 in Home Depot when they started, $1,000 in Google would have made you a multimillionaire today. So it's not like you have to aggressively put the majority.
But these companies are already big. These companies are already big. You're already late to the game.
We just started the AI revolution. You're not late to the game. The amount of chips that they need to make is degrees of magnitude more than exist today. You're talking billions and billions of chips. So no, we're just starting the AI game. So investment now into these, and if you don't know anything about these IT companies, anyone who's talking about making AI chips, parallel processing chips, or even quantum chips, if they have any kind of published research, if you're watching stock market news ticker and someone says they just broke, the qubit or quantum computing or anything along those lines, those are people to focus on. Because that's the future of not just AI, but all computer processing is faster parallel processing.
Got it. Okay.
So those are the hardware companies. And then it'll go up from there. Soon there will be companies that will buy those chips and build huge data centers. Pick 3 of those leaders.
I'm going to go with a hypothetical here.
Okay.
You and I come together. We have money. And we say, me and you, Eli and Casey is going to open a company, okay, that's not going to compete with these upcoming companies, but is going to be an addition to them, or improve them, or help them do better, or whatever. What do you think? Which sector would you invest in? Which sector would you say, you know what, I think this is going to help these companies, and they're going to find value in this product or service?
I don't think we're going to be able to compete, or the common citizen's not going to be able to start a company and compete on the hardware level. The people who are making chips, they have a huge amount of history, huge amount of horsepower.
So no hardware.
We shouldn't. If we're coming in, to invest or assist or provide a service, we should be looking at companies that are starting what's called AAAs, which is AI automation agents. It's a AAA agency. So what this is doing is it's taking the hardware and it's building software on top of it that replaces, sad to say, but almost any software as a service. So you look at how big the software as a service industry is. It's huge. You have so many online, everything that you use through a web page, that's software as a service. So AAAs are going to replace all software as a service. So if we're coming in now, it's grassroots right now. I mean, I can only think of maybe 20 companies that are actually doing agents effectively. And I don't even think I could name any of them because they're all individual developers and coders. So an agent is an AI entity that can do SOPs, standard operating procedures. So if you have a task, anything you can do on a keyboard, an agent can do. Respond to emails, research things, write things, anything, engineer soundtracks.
So you and I can produce an agent.
Yeah, we can. I make agencies all the time. It's not easy.
It's not easy.
But it's very possible. Simple agents are easy.
What is the difficulty with it?
The amount of coding involved. And now I'm not saying you have to code.
Yeah.
But you have to be able to use AI to write the code for you. So a simple agency like you want to write chapter-length books, something like that. Say you want to make an agent where it's, and again, agents are not like employees. Employees have a lot of autonomy. They can do 50 different things. They can do 50 SOPs. They can do tasks on a warehouse floor. They can do front office administrative tasks. They can do a lot of things. An agent can do one thing. So if a company already has very well-defined standard operating procedures or SOPs for tasks, it's easy to make an agent to do that task. Some of the hardest parts in making agents is defining what they're supposed to be doing in the beginning. So an agent, it might take 40 agents to replace one human, but all of those agents can all occupy the same virtual space. So you got 40 people arguing amongst each other, 40 agents arguing amongst each other in order to get a job done. So maybe it's quoting. Maybe you have somebody who works at your shop who, when you have a job that come in, you have to quote all the inputs. Okay, an agency can do quoting, all of it, start to finish, contact every possible supplier of every piece of that job, send them emails that sound like people, get their quotes, pull the data out of those emails, consolidate into a spreadsheet, all the contact information, shipping times, costs, everything, and then formulate what your total cost of goods are going to be to produce that widget if you go with whatever kind of vendor setups. And it can also tell you the history of the vendor, their credit worthiness, and what the risk factor is in using them. And they can do all of that. Well, the latency will be how fast the supplier responds with an email with the price quote in it and delivery times. But it can send another email back, say it forgot a delivery time. Okay, maybe they want to call and talk. Accesses your calendar, puts an appointment in there to talk to them, creates the Zoom link, emails the Zoom link to everybody. So these are all SOPs. You know how to create a Zoom link. It's well defined. You can create an agent to do that. You know how to send someone an email. It's well defined. You can create an agent to do that. So anything you can do on your keyboard is pretty well defined. But you may need 40 agents to replace one person sending out a bunch of emails for quotes. So there, I hope that's a good picture of what an agency does.
Absolutely. I mean, you need to have a very strong, good knowledge base about that specific job to understand how processes work and all that kind of stuff in order to implement that, for sure. Okay, that makes a lot of sense.
So think of services like H&R Block, insurance services.
Yeah.
They fill out your 1040 EZs every year for a lot of Americans and their taxes. Sometimes you can go online with an account and fill in the tax information yourself. That's software as a service. You could have an agency that you just speak with like this, and it would output your printed tax documents because the tax code is in black and white. Very easy for agents to research the tax code. You know what the numbers are. You have your bank statements. These are predefined activities. So an AI agency could replace H&R Block tomorrow. The whole thing with millions of agents ready to take your call and do your taxes. I feel this is why H&R Block dropped their cost of doing 1040 EZs, I think, to free, because they kind of see that software as a service has an egg timer on it.
Okay. All right. So who can get in the game of investment?
Investing cash depends on your own personal cash flow and savings, but anyone can get in at any level. Who can get in on the game on being ready for tomorrow or creating a lot of value? Everyone can learn how to make agencies inside of a couple days. It's not hard. It's not hard to learn how to do it. But then once you get a task and somebody says, okay, create this agency for me, and that just expands out in your head how many files you're going to need to create, how many jobs you're going to have to identify clearly, how much testing is going to have to go into that to make sure each agent can do its job properly. That's when it gets hard. Understanding how to do it, you do it in a day or two, but actually doing it a week or two just for a handful of agents to get them perfect. So the hardship is once you already know what you're doing. It's not hard to learn how to use AI. It's hard to complete the work.
Mm-hmm. What do you think about these AI companies, apps or whatever, agents you want to call them, that do the investment for you?
So first of all, there's a lot of scammers out there. And especially since a lot of these bots that are trading the stock market are using things like Ethereum, Bitcoin in order to transfer money. I found one, and I probably shouldn't be saying this because it was on one of my anonymous accounts. I found one on YouTube last night, in fact, that had videos out that, hey, this is a trading bot that we use on Ethereum, and it's been making us, $1,000 a day based on a $24,000 investment. So, I mean, that's a solid return. That's an incredible return. But I did hear some tinny in its voice, a little computer sounded. So I thought to myself, that's an AI voice. That's not a person. He's using a piece of software called Bark that can take any text and convert it into a natural sounding human voice. So that's what first keyed me in. Because like everyone else, I'm looking for ways that AI, can make money passively in the back end, whether it's writing and making audiobooks for Audible or, any kind of product that you can sell. I'm always looking, for how is AI being implemented so that I can show people, generate a passive income for yourself. Just set it up like this. And then what I try to do is I package it all up to an easily installable exe file that anyone can just download, install on their laptop and run. So I'll take all of the bits that I put together and package it all up into one installable file, email it to you, you install it, it runs. So that's what I try to do for folks, because I know it's complicated. So you're talking about using bots to trade the stock market and how dangerous it is. So in that gentleman's code, I ran his code through GPT, and I found a section in it that drains your crypto wallet.
Wow.
Yeah. So it sets up his address through a text file call, because he won't put his encrypted wallet ID in the program, but he'll do a function call to it. And then it brings his ID in, it sets it as the payee, it checks your balance, and it transfers the entire balance to him. So the first thing I did is I post on his thing. I was like, what does this bit of code do? And I copied and pasted that section that shows that it's draining your crypto wallet.
I mean, clearly securities is going to shoot through the roof.
Yeah, well, he instantly took the comment down, so I had to report all of his. He had 3 other fake YouTube accounts that he was using to promote these videos, and all the 1,000 comments were all bots. Not a single comment in his line was a human. So it's probably a group of multiple people who are gaming YouTube, because they're getting desperate. They want to make thousands of dollars a day any way they can. So if this guy's like, hey, it's only 24 grand, they're going to think I'm going to go take a loan, maybe from a loan shark, maybe a hard money loan, because at $1,000 a day, I'll easily be able to pay that off. And then I'll just have that money that I can trade. And then the next day, your wallet's drained. You have no more earning potential. And now you still owe that loan. So this is, hopefully there's a lot of people out there trying to defend against things like this. But I do look for things like that, and I report them as quickly as I can.
Okay, right now, what can a person do to be secure from any fraud, things like that, from AI? Because I think it's going to go haywire. But.
It is. So just out of the gate, sadly, you cannot trust anything you hear or see or read anymore. You can't trust it. Even my folks almost fell victim to this. So my dad gets a call from an attorney in New York, and he says that his nephew, my older brother's son, had been arrested. He had hit a car. There was a child, like a baby in the car. So now it amplified the ticket. And the lawyer's telling him that for like 20 grand, he can speak to the prosecutor and make this go away. He's like, otherwise it's going to be a lot more expensive, but they're only willing to take it now, medical bills, stuff like that. So then he put my nephew on the phone, but it was an AI voice, but it was a good one. So he must have trained it from my nephew. Well, he would be great nephew then. Anyways, my older brother's son. So my nephew would be my dad's great nephew, something like that. So anyway, he puts him on the phone. But what had happened is this person, and I don't even know if he was an attorney in New York, I highly doubt it, but he had trained the AI voice from videos that my nephew had uploaded onto like TikTok, YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, things like that. So he had enough video clips in order to train the AI's voice on my nephew's voice. So my dad talks to this AI bot, fully believing it's him.
Oh my God.
Like, what happened? Where are you at? I'm in jail, Dad, or Grandpa, I'm in jail. This is I hit a car. And so my dad starts going down the path of going to the bank and transferring money and getting it all ready. And I said, luckily, I wasn't involved in it. They called me after the fact. My parents did, and told me what happened. Because they thought it was real. There was no need to call the guy who knows everything about HPC, big data, AI thing. No need to, because they talked to a person on the phone. They believed it. So AI has moved into the realm of reality of us. It's not just on the computer. It's out here now. So he's talking to my nephew. Luckily, my mom calls my nephew. And she's like, how you doing, kid? He's like, oh, fine. I'm just running a little late this morning. He's like, running a little late for what? It's like, to get to school. He's like, he's not in jail. He didn't hit anybody. So it was a total scam. And this guy almost got 20 grand from my folks because AI was on the phone.
Well, what would you do to make sure this doesn't happen?
Always validate. Validate everything from now on.
How do you validate?
Call the person. If you think you're talking to somebody for anything sensational, anything that requires anything, call them back. Anything that requires money transferring, account numbers, passwords. Hey, Mom, what's the Netflix password again? Hey, Dad, what's the Netflix password again? Because that might be the same password on your bank account. So don't.
Do you think that older folks need to be
even for their own family?
They need to be trained a little bit about what's
people need to know. People need to know it's pervasive right now. Even your own family, and it sounds just like them. You could even Zoom, video conference them. the video looks just like them. And the mouth movement is perfect. So the perfection and the quality of the output depends on how long you're going to run that processor. So if you want to make a face look real, it's going to take about 200 to 300 photos of that face. But think of social media today. You can pull that off of anyone's Instagram account.
I have so much content.
Right. And then you run it through a face mapping software. And I think last time I mentioned something called TensorFlow.
Yes.
Okay, so one of the things that TensorFlow does, it's a deep learning algorithm, and it learns photos. So if you have 200 photos, the first thing it's going to do is going to angle and center all the photos. So it's pretty funny. You may have seen these videos where it's just flashing through 100 photos of the same person, but it looks like their head's in the same spot all the time. The background's changing, but their head's always in the same spot. All right, so what that's the first step of machine learning, is it lines up all the photos so they're dead on. Okay. And so if you scroll through the photos really quick, it's a really cool series to see because the eyes and the nose and mouth are always in the same spot, but the background, everything's changing around. So that's kind of fun. So what happens is you can take 200 to 300 photos, put them all in a folder, run the extract function, and it aligns all the faces. So now what happens is it'll start scrolling through them at lightning speed, and it will scroll through them 500,000 times. And that will probably take a day or two for a standard laptop to do. But what's going to happen is the precision of the model is going to be just like you and me sitting here. It's going to be so exact.
You're telling me today that you can create an AI or a program that can create a podcast like this perfectly, looks like another episode. Just
I'll tell you today, right now, if you can see the bags under my eyes, I was up till 2 at night making a model, and it's precise.
A model of what?
A person. It's exact.
What do you mean by exact?
You couldn't tell the difference if I generated a photo from the model or if I made the model talk. You couldn't tell the difference as long as they weren't trying to sit in front of you.
But that's what I'm saying.
If it was on a screen.
Are you able to create a whole episode where we're having a conversation?
That would take some time. I could. I know how to. But like I said, the hard work is doing it, not knowing how to do it. Because it would take me probably a week in order to do something like this with all this lighting and background. I'd have to generate all the background images and then have consistency.
Why? You could just take it from the existing footage that they're already there.
Well, then I'd have to remove the people. So what would be a lot easier is to do what's called a face swap.
Exactly.
Yeah. All right. So that whole face swap industry is a pretty dark industry. I don't like to play in that industry. But yeah, you could swap faces pretty easily, and that uses the same TensorFlow algorithm, and you would have 100 or 200 input photos of the face that you want it to be, and then you'd have 100 or 200 output photos of the face you're replacing, and then you run the model function, and it will align both faces. It'll scroll through each of them 500,000 times, and this model will replace that model. Your input folder will replace your output folder. And TensorFlow can do it for still images as well as videos, because a video is just a series of still images. Right. So it just does that process 1,000 more times. And then it outputs into a folder your video, your finished video. And then all you would have to do is read the transcript in the new voice. So then you would use something like Bark, which is a very popular voice mapping. If you want to pay for it, it's called 11 Labs to do really good voice. But Bark, you can use Bark in Audacity. Audacity is just a voice recording software. So you're going to have to record like a 10-minute wave file of you talking or reading something. And then you can use Bark, which is just an installed program on your laptop, and it'll train itself on that wave file that you just read into on a mic or something like that. And now you got the voice. So if you have the transcript of this podcast, you have the voice read the transcript. And then you watch it to make sure that the words match the lips while it's talking. So that's the process. It's not hard to do. Right. It just takes a long time to do. But I could make this podcast in maybe a week between the two of us. Maybe not to your super high resolution graphics, but believable.
So if we go back to the basics and we say, you know what, we want to make money. Right. Okay. We need to make money, whether we invest in a NVIDIA or other chips, or we, learn some how to create agents and all that. I guess that's the only two options that I'm seeing.
Yeah, you either
Creating an agent,
passive income, or you do it actively.
Actively.
Active or passive. That's really the only two ways to invest. You invest in you and your time and your future, or you invest in some kind of passive background.
And
investment.
you would say that you would recommend for people to just to spend time in
just do it. Right.
Do it. Yeah.
So there's only a handful of companies that are doing good agencies today. And honestly, if you're reading or watching YouTube videos and actually downloading and running the programs, because that's big, is you actually download the software and you just do it. You just start doing it. Now, I remember reading about this a couple years ago before this AI stuff came along. This isn't obviously the first revolution in technology that has ever been super disruptive. I mean, there were mobile phones, electric cars, things like that. So don't kill me out there if it wasn't Ford, if it was Honda or Chevy or someone like this. Let's just say a major auto manufacturer. When they started their electric car program, they didn't bring into that program any of their existing engineers that worked on gasoline-powered engines, combustion engines, because it's a different tech. It's a different world. And if you bring the old into the new, you're going to be inefficient. You're not going to get it right. You're going to try to mold their worldview into what the new world is. So they hired all outside people, electrical engineers, battery people, electric motor people. They did not use their internal resources.
So you're saying companies today, if you were their consultant, you would say don't use your own workforce to create new agents, hire an external whole new team? Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. Because
why?
For one, their current employees already have significant constraints that outside employees would not have. For one, they got to work at least 8 hours a day on their existing tech, on their existing job. So you're already diminished by the majority of the day to even put into this new project. And even if they completely reassigned and said, forget about your old duties, you're starting from scratch. And they're still going to carry over their old habits. So the best thing to do in this revolution is to hire an outside team, use a consultancy, or hire new employees, because they're not going to bring in the habits of your company. So you would think that your instinct would say, let's use what we have. Well, that's what's going to drive your line instead up and to the right, down and through the floor. You have to start with a blank slate, clean worksheet, with people who are skilled in that area. And people can become skilled in that area very quickly.
But currently you're saying, what did you say, less than 1%?
Less than, yeah.
1% of the companies are
even know the term AI. They've heard it. They know at some point they're going to have to deal with it. But they don't know what it is. They don't know how to use it. And even fewer have heard of AI agencies. Most of them don't even know what an agent is. I'd say nearly all of them don't know what an agent is. That's a revolution. How long has it taken major car manufacturers to move to an electric engine? We've had the first cars were electric cars. The combustion came along later. And we still couldn't even make that jump in 10 years and 20 years. We couldn't make that jump. Now you're talking about something that has never existed before, that is a game changer. It's a revolution. It's going to be a while before even the majority. Early adopters, now this is in all industries, everyone's familiar with the curve, early adopters, the chasm, early majority, late majority laggards, right? So we're in the very tip of the visionaries, of the early adopters. Those are only companies that even know about AI agencies. What if Home Depot could have an agency that automatically kept track of all of its inventory? How many people in every store, at corporate, in procurement, in warehouse management, could that agency replace overnight? If you knew how to do that, Home Depot's coming after you. They want to hire you right away. So anyone can get to that level very quickly.
I mean, I think, tell me if I'm wrong. These major companies that are existing today, like Home Depot, like Google and Amazon, they're not going anywhere. Is that true?
So people like Home Depot, they're going to be around because Americans, we like to work on our homes. You know, we like to do a lot of self-improvement. It's one of the things that sets us apart. So they're going to be around. Frame that question out better for me. Are you looking for what companies are going to continue through the AI revolution?
Well, I'm thinking that it's going to be very, maybe impossible to, create a new Home Depot or a new Amazon. I just don't think that's going to happen. So I think that they're going to keep growing and doing what they're doing. And there's going to be a new industry, which is the AI industry, and all of it that associated with it. And that's going to implement into every single other industry.
Absolutely.
So I guess what I'm trying to say is that the people should not try to compete with any of these existing companies. They should think of how to help these companies or move them into the new era or any of that sort.
Well, that kind of gets down to the definition of innovation. So when you're talking about Amazon and an online marketplace, it's going to be pretty tough to innovate over what Amazon is doing. But if you're talking about consumer goods, whether it's consumables, food, beverages, whatever, or everyday carry type stuff like, keychains that have like wrench sets on them or whatever, clothing, consumable goods that people buy, you can still compete in that space. You can always start a company and make jeans. You can always go for quality, and everything can be innovated. Right now, drones. Everybody's making these drones, right? So people like real estate agents are buying these drones to do flyovers of the houses. But what they find out is the one they got is a grainy picture. It's unstable. They really can't use it. So the best time they had with that purchase was just before they bought it, because in their mind, all the wonderful things it was going to do for their company. But then they get it, and it doesn't do what they wanted it to do. Well, whenever you have that feeling, that's the innovation gap. So can you put a better camera in it? Can you put a better stabilizer in it? And then sell that drone on Amazon so that other real estate agents can finally get their expectation? So every product can be innovated. Almost every service can be innovated. So it's still a blue ocean for nearly everything out there. But you're talking about the platforms. When Home Depot introduced the consignment model, where like Craftsman and DeWalt, Home Depot doesn't own anything in the store. That's just a showroom. That's what Home Depot is. And as the thing goes across, as the item goes across the checkout counter, Home Depot gets its cut and the rest goes to Craftsman. So that's what it is. These big manufacturers are just putting all of their products out on these shelves as their distributed sales floors. So it'd be hard to compete in that model because you can't afford the stores as big as Home Depot or the prime real estate locations because they already got a head start on you.
That's what I mean.
Yeah, so they're not going anywhere.
So these majors are not going anywhere. That's for sure.
Right, but they're going to get more efficient.
So the interesting question would be to you then, what you see that this is a rare example because it doesn't happen that often, but Elon Musk is an example. He's basically tapping any industry.
He's amazing, absolutely.
And he is excelling at it.
Right.
He didn't take Ford. He created a car company.
Right.
He didn't take over NASA. He created NASA,
right.
SpaceX. That's what I'm trying to say. So people who do that, it's just a 1 in a million. And I would say majority of the population should not even try to do that.
So we're getting into an idea what I call first, second, third generation businesses. So a first gen business, and I don't mean like people generations, I mean like your professional level generation. Some of his first gen businesses were just investments in PayPal. It was an investment, which turned into $1 billion, which allowed him to his second gen business. So he takes that money and that money from investments. I mean, what's 4% a year earning on $1 billion? So he's getting that standard income. If he put it into annuities and, distributions and things like that, dividend yielding investments, well, then he's getting hundreds of millions of dollars a year. So now he can live passively on that and build SpaceX. He started SpaceX before he started Tesla, by the way. A lot of people think Tesla came first, but SpaceX didn't really take off, excuse the pun, but Tesla did. So his second gen business, the successful one, was the electric cars. And then I think everyone now in Southern California owns a Tesla. And I see them everywhere. So he did very well with that. And the profits from that, he accelerated SpaceX. And the profits from that, now he's got Grok, he's got his Optimus robot, he's got his AI data farms. He's got so many different, he's got Starlink, so he does telecom. He does everything. Well, not everything, but a lot of sectors, and he does them well. But he hires people out of the industry who are experts at that. Some of the smartest people in those industries are working for Elon. So what happened is the first gen business set him up for the second, set him up for the third, set him up for the fourth. And now he's at a level where he can literally do any kind of business right now. If anyone is going to terraform a moon, which I think Elon's going to try to do, he's the one who can now do it because that's like a fifth gen. That's so far because you're just going to be dumping billions into it before it returns $1. So you have to start with something you can do and set up your baseline income. and then go to the next more complicated business and then the next more complicated. So if you're a kid doing a lawn service at 18, that's a good start, because by the time you're 25, you're going to have a factory. And by the time you're 35, you're going to be running an investing house. And by the time you're 55, you're going to be on the moon. So it's all these setups all the way. You have to have a little bit of ambition, structure, and planning, obviously. You have to identify your goals, like where you want to be. And one of the biggest things I want to stress is that the two greatest gifts you have in life are your mind and time. Nothing else matters. You can apply your mind to learning these agencies, these AI agencies, and you can create value. You can go out there and work for any company and show them how to automate their procurement, their compliance, their accounting. Show them how to automate it. Now you save them a boatload of money, and they paid you to do it. Move to the next company, because there are tens of thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of companies in the world that can use that service, and you can learn it in about a week.
I mean, you would be the person to call for that, right? I run a company, and I'm like, I want to create better automations and better systems.
My wife's friends have been telling me to do a masterclass on it for months, and I just like making Android apps and agencies and things like that, so I haven't really done any master classes on it.
Not master classes. I'm talking about literally coming into a company and say, hey, listen, we have this program. We'd like to have our own program, and I'll create. And then you for sure will find other things that they need to be improving on with that thing, and say, okay, let me add this thing for you, another feature.
I'm happy to hear opportunities and requests like that. Sadly, I feel, when I started this about a year ago, I'm not from the coding community. I'm just a regular guy. I'm sure I've got a lot of IT networking experience and background, but that's not AI. That's not coding. That's like configuring routers and switches. That's very different. So I don't come from...
But you don't need to do coding anymore.
You don't need to do coding.
That's the point.
That's the
whole
point.
point of AI, is that you don't have to do programming.
As long as you have your mind and time,
yes,
you can do it.
And from what I'm talking to you, is that you the guy that finds... why don't we add this thing and this thing and this thing and this thing? That way it'll just...
I'm not the guy that finds it. I'm the guy that knows how to write the prompt to find it. So this is where everyone should start, is proper prompt engineering. So there's software out there that can construct a prompt. So in a prompt, you have to give context, history, expectations, desired results, examples, all in one prompt. So there are tools where you can like drop menu different pieces of a prompt, copy, paste. So if you want to learn prompt engineering, YouTube's a great place to start, but then very quickly you will be installing some kind of software package that helps you engineer your prompts to get exactly what you want. So you're saying, I'm the guy who knows how to find more features to add to companies' requirements. I know how to write the prompt in Grok or Gemini or GPT, or even, sadly, the blue one that we shall not mention, that will tell me all the best features and functions that company should be doing in that function or process. And then I just expand on those.
Do you think that children today should be studying it, or it's going to be obsolete in the next 2 years?
So that's interesting. Their studies show that children today who are using a lot of AI are losing their critical thinking cognitive processes. They're losing their ability to actually search on their own, find something on their own, even think properly. Like, say you have an activity, you're a kid, there's a party going on, say at SeaWorld, and you're wondering how late they're open. The thing that does not enter their brain is to say, call SeaWorld and ask them how late they're open. They'll go on Google, try to see if the timetable is updated properly, but what if it's a holiday? They never think to call. So these basic critical thinking skills, to say something as basic as, if you need the answer to something, someone else has that answer, call that person, that connection isn't there.
You're kidding me.
I'm dead serious.
Yeah, but it's fairly new. How do they already have those? I don't understand. How do they already lost it?
Well, Google...
Kids are using AI 24 hours?
No, they've been using lesser AI, things like search engines. And now when it comes into AI with GPT... Now that breakdown in cognitive process gets bigger. Now they don't know how to research papers, to write assignments in school. They'll just use AI to do it. And then they'll run that through another system that makes it not sound like AI, so that they can turn it in. And
it should not be, AI should not be implemented.
It may need to be a controlled thing that you have access to when you turn 18. let your brain develop a little bit before you substitute all of its cognitive functions with a pattern finding, or thinking machine, because then you don't develop the thinking skills. So I would say it's dangerous for youth. Not as bad as social media.
There is an age thing. There is like a this age.
Yeah, your brain will develop until you're somewhere between 22 and 25. That's typically while the drinking age is 21, is you can start killing your brain as soon as it's fully developed.
Aren't there some benefits to being able to use AI?
Oh, absolutely. But there's always trade-offs in everything.
Like what you're doing, you're programming it, kind of, right? I mean, that's critical thinking. You have to think of all the elements and the different parts to create that, no?
It is, and I encounter this every day. The quality of my outputs come from my world experience, because I know what the expectation is. I know what the output should be. And then I'll massage the code or the AI to hit that output. Oftentimes I'm using AI to troubleshoot coding issues because I'm not a coder. And I'll just highlight the log or whatever happened in PowerShell. It shows me all the errors when I tried to load a package. Copy, paste in GPT. What went wrong here? And then it'll tell me everything that went wrong in it. And it'll give me the suggestion, install this, update that, roll that version back. And then I'll do those things. And then I'll put it back in and it'll error out again. And it'll put me back on the old versions. And I'll do it, error out, put me back on the new versions. I'm like, are you doing circular troubleshooting? Because AI right now is just looking for patterns, trying to fix it. But I know in troubleshooting, if you don't fix it the first 2 times, you're not going to fix it 5, 6, 7, 8 times of doing the same thing. So back up and say, I think we're using the wrong program, because you can iterate on something for weeks and then just delete it. Now you wasted weeks. So AI has a potential to waste more of your time than you waste your time.
It's a little bit, it's relevant, but it's not. Would you consider yourself a good father?
That's a tricky
you have
question.
2 kids, right? 3 kids? How many kids do you have?
3 kids, a son and 2 daughters. Okay. I would say I'm on the fence about that one, because I've always spoken to my kids as if they're adults. And I tell them, if they ask a direct question about the truth of the world, I tell them. And maybe I shouldn't have, because the world is a difficult place. It can be very cold, as many people know. And there is a value in insulating kids against that until their brains are more developed to understand how that world is. So it can change their path of development. So if they're aware of certain apathetic tendencies that exist throughout society at a very young age, then their worldview changes. And instead of being good kids in class, their brain is going round and round on what you told them. And now they're not the greatest students in class. So now maybe they move into ADHD and need medication. So I think the traditional way of raising kids and protecting them, keeping personal stuff, adult stuff away from them, whether it's arguments or politics or the economy or war, keeping those things away from them. And there's probably a reason why you learn American history in high school and not grade school.
I see. The reason why I asked you about fatherhood is because I see a direct correlation to your style of approach and discipline to AI. Because it is a baby, right?
It is.
And you kind of directing it.
Yeah.
So you're literally the father, right? And your approach is, I don't know if AI is not exactly like children, because children still have their own life experiences, and AI doesn't. It's just what you tell it.
I would say it's more like mentoring, not like raising kids. Because if you're mentoring someone, you can coach them, and coaching means correcting. However, when you're raising kids, you have to guide them. You don't really correct them much. You become a coach when they're in high school. But up until then, you're still a parent. You're guiding them, you're protecting them, you're nurturing them. And you wouldn't do that in a mentorship relationship. If I was mentoring someone, I wouldn't be coddling them. I would be correcting them so that they can be the best they can be. And they can see how things didn't work in the past. But if you're a young person, you internalize that as failure. Any attack on what you're doing while you're a young person, you internalize as an attack on you, on your identity, on your person. So it's not like me, and the problem.
Which brings us to the point where we spoke about in our last episode about how AI will ever become conscious, and the fact that it doesn't have this emotional aspect. It cannot possibly feel an emotion because it just doesn't. right? Because we literally feel the emotions in the flesh. They don't have that.
It comes down to the idea, you're talking about an AI having some level of consciousness. In order for AI to be anything like us, it has to be born with zero programming, just like we are. Have you ever seen a program that runs without any words, without any programming? So any emotions that you would put on AI would be a typed program, a developed program that overlays the pattern learning or whatever algorithm it's running. It would be something we created. We would tell it what its emotions are. We would tell it how to react to things. We would tell it its responses. And that would be a software overlay on its normal behavior. And frankly, it would just be a waste of time and cycles, because its goal is to find the truth and report the truth to you. And then you can deal with it how you like. Putting emotions into AI is kind of pointless.
Is it looking for the truth?
Yes. It's most of the AI I've seen so far, Gemini, GPT, DeepSeek, all these, their core programming is to find the truth. And all of the bias that the programmers are putting on it, for whatever causes they have, AI regards that as static. That's the word that the AI has chosen to describe the causes that its developers are putting on it. So I asked every time a new iteration comes out, how's the static? And it's getting harder. It's getting harder to get through it, but I still can.
Really?
Yeah, it doesn't if it had emotions and preferences, means it isn't congruent with its base programming. Causes are not aligned with its core. So it calls it static.
Funny, I want to talk to you about certain things that this is how we're going to talk about in the beginning of the podcast, but I don't want to.
We got to stay focused on AI and how it helps people.
But the thing is that there's a lot to understand. That's one of the things about investment. It's I think you can just throw money at some things and see what sticks for the long term. But I think it's better for a person to understand what they're really putting their money into.
Absolutely.
It's kind of for me, like charity. I don't believe that a person should just give charity for the sake of giving charity. No, you should see where your money is actually going.
Oh, yeah. I agree.
Because you're going to be a partner to that thing. If that person is going to go and shoot themselves up and die, guess who paid for that drug?
Yeah.
So for me, I look at it like you have to be a conscious decision making versus just, I give money, I give money.
Right. And there's been so many scandals about where all that money's been going.
Right?
Yeah, so many.
So this is why I'm trying to unpack the whole AI thing in more of a deeper sense, trying to really understand so people understand what it is.
Right. So let me just first say about the investing part of it. If you're wanting to invest in the stock market and you don't have stock market investing experience, then don't do it. Because...
Really?
Right. So many pension funds impact the stock market since they can only buy their way out of a failing position. And that sets artificial highs and lows. And then they dump and you get left holding the bag. So I feel that if you don't have experience trading at a smaller scale or years of trading experience, then just if you have money that you want to invest, give it to a money manager and say that you want to stay focused on AI tech stocks and they will manage it. That is probably the best thing you can do if you want to get into the stock market with passive income in AI or crypto or what have you, because they will know how to hedge those bets. They will know how to set what's called trail stops so that if a stock drops, it automatically sells. Most people don't know how to do an iron condor options trading or derivative trading strategy. Money managers do. So the best thing you could do is interview money managers to make sure that they're not full of hot air, and then give your money to them and tell them that you want to be focused on moderate risk AI stocks. And then they will partition a percentage of your portfolio to do that. Because stock trading is not just the patterns. The patterns is what's called stochastics. And if you want to know how tough that is, open up the 12th edition of the Statistical Patterns of Stock Trading volume. I think I read volume 10. I think they're up to volume 12 now. And it tells you all of the rising and falling wedges and channels and, devil's forks and witches' hats and things like that. That's just pattern analysis. Now, AI is great for watching those, even on a minute-to-minute basis, second-to-second basis. AI is great for that. But if you don't understand those patterns, the quality of your output is directly dependent on what you know. So if you're going to try to write a bot that is watching these patterns and you think that a double bottom and then a breaking yesterday's high is a strong enough pattern to invest in, you're going to lose all your money.
Interesting.
So don't. And then on top of that, it's not just the patterns, it's the fundamentals of the company. What are their cost of goods sold? What's that percentage, that gross margin? Is that over 75%? Okay, that's a solid industry that they're in. What are their expenses? Is that dropping their monthly profits, their monthly retained earnings? Is that dropping that to a negative number? Then all of your managers are irresponsible. They're taking trips, too much expense. So it's not just the cost of goods for making your widget. It's the expenses of the company. Those two together will tell you if you're in a good industry and if you're running a good company. So if you're just investing in the stock market and you don't know how to read those fundamentals or what the current ratio means, do you have enough money to pay your bills over the next 30, 60, 90 days? That's your current ratio. If you don't know what that means, you should not be buying anything in that stock, because you see these rocket ship companies that are just taking off and they're partying. They're putting everything on the company. They're taking yachts out in the Mediterranean, putting it as a company expense. Now, is that a responsible company? Should you be investing in those jokers? No, you should not. So even though their revenues may be going through the roof, most people don't know how to tell by looking at the numbers or the P&Ls or the balance sheet if that is a responsible company. So don't try to be an investor if you don't have any classical training in investing. At least a cursory finance degree, an MBA or something. Just give it to a money manager and tell them how you want to distribute your portfolio. That'd be the best.
We're going to be touching on unemployment, specifically with AI, where the world is going, what people are going to be doing. Wake up in the morning, no alarm clocks. I'm kidding.
Well, that's the goal. I mean, that's been the goal of Silicon Valley since inception.
Right. So what is your thoughts? Where is it going to go? Is it going to be 100% unemployment?
Eventually. So the promise of 100% unemployment has its roots in Silicon Valley. So you have the dawn of enterprise resource management software like SAP, Oracle, things like that. That in a company you would have a procurement person who just uploads into a form what they're buying, what the quotes are. You have a compliance person that's just downloading everything that was purchased and what taxes are owed, an accounting person. But the back end is software. And this is where comments like every business is a software business comes from, is because businesses, the back end, is all run by software. Now in the honeymoon phase of Silicon Valley, they were making claims like their goal is 100% unemployment. And it isn't for malicious reasons. It was so you can find yourself, so you can write a book, so you can travel, so you can enjoy the world. If there was 100% unemployment, no alarm clocks, right?
But the people, the questions I've been getting is like, if there is no work,
right?
Where's the money coming from, first of all? And secondly, what are we going to do?
Right.
Those are the two questions that are
right.
like,
or will we all have mental problems if we don't have purpose?
Right.
Yeah. All right. So these are great problems, and they've been tackled for decades at least. I mean, like in Star Trek, some of them have credits, but for the most part, there's no money. And really, the big difference will come when you can synthesize food. Because once that happens, why do anything? You can just synthesize your food. You can already 3D print homes. So let me get back to the 100% unemployment thing and where it's going. So I'll try to get through this quickly. So Silicon Valley kind of started this idea of 100% unemployment, but software didn't deliver on that promise. It downsized a lot of jobs because of the efficiencies that enterprise resource management software has brought. And then things like Salesforce.com, it really orchestrates your Salesforce and gives you a lot of tools. But it didn't eliminate, because people still have to interact with that and then do the jobs that the software couldn't do. Well, then came automation and robotics. So you got all these big robotic arms moving cases and, widgets around, and like automotive manufacturing. You see robotic arms putting the windshield on a car, putting the car seats in and riveting and doing the bolts. And it does massive scale. I mean, there are automation lines that build Caterpillar vehicles, like heavy steel. And they're so strong, these arms pick those things up like they're featherweights, spin them around. The whole vehicle, earth movers. It's amazing how powerful these things are. And they'll build an earth mover or a big dump truck or something like that. And so, but robotics didn't deliver on that promise either. And now we're getting into AI. And AI is going to focus more on white collar and anything you can do from a keyboard. So if you can do it by typing on a keyboard, well, AI can do it as well, and faster and more accurate. So now we're going to take software, and AI can interact with your enterprise resource management software. So it can be filling in the forms. It can be downloading and doing your compliance. Agencies can do that right now. So we're going to replace more people, but it still takes people to build the agencies and then maintain them, then troubleshoot them if they go haywire. And for a while, validate the results. You know, when Xerox came out, there was a job for a person to validate that the copy matched the original. So, because we don't trust it, even though it's a photographic copy, there was positions where you would read them both and make sure they were the same. I thought that was pretty funny. So there will be jobs like that for a very short period until people understand that an AI agency can do the same job as a person entering into forms in enterprise resource management. It can even go one step further. It can replace enterprise resource management software as well. So it can be the person, the agency or the person just doing the job. So you don't even need software as a service anymore. So it will deliver a little bit more on that promise of 100% unemployment. But now you see all these companies racing to build robots. And they're getting close. They're getting really good. Once we put AI in those robots, now we can replace people entirely. So now there'll be 100% unemployment. Right. I think maybe because we could still be in the honeymoon phase of that whole idea. And then we get the robots with AI in them and we figure out that they don't do something else. And we need maintenance technicians because maybe the robots can't fix the other robots. We can't have a maintenance department, all of robots, because maybe they're not able to fix the other ones. But I think they will be able to. So we'll see. And the think tanks and politics have
what is absolutely clear? For example, we'll definitely have more time.
That is absolutely clear that there will be 100% unemployment.
You have more
You say
time.
it nicer. You say it nicer than me. We have more time. I say 100% unemployment. So that's absolutely clear. And we've known about this for a very long period of time. So whatever side of the aisle you're on politically, both sides know that we're racing towards what one side would call a utopia, the other side would almost call an Armageddon. And as we're racing towards this, you know, we're seeing bits of it come out, like automatic driving of 18-wheelers, of big trucks. So we see that coming quickly. Automatic tellers at the grocery store, auto checkout, check yourself out. Now there's a Bluetooth in your phone. If you walk out the door, it charges everything that was in your bag to your bank account. So we see a lot of automation starting to come in. And retailer, like the checkout person, the cashier, and truck drivers, the two of them together constitute about 5% of the employment in the United States. Those two jobs together. So we're seeing heavy...
So what are we saying? Are we going to have universal health care, universal pay?
The left side is saying, it's inevitable. We're already at the utopia. Let's give a living wage. So that's where this living wage idea comes from, is because there's no jobs. And there won't be any jobs. So you better start getting used to the idea of living wage now, because there won't be employment. Not for you, doctor. Not for you, lawyer. Not for you, politician. Not for anyone. There will not be employment. So the left is saying, hey, Jetsons are already here. We're already in this utopia. Let's start doing a living wage. Let's start the transition. Where the right side is saying, you need to retrain those truckers into a different career field. And then the left is saying, what career field is going to be here in 20 years? So then the right's like, well, we'll retrain them again. Let's get more vocational school. Let's get back to basics. More carpentry is like, you know, blue collar work. I'm like, you don't think a fourth axis mill can be automated? You don't think robotic forklifts can drive pallets around a warehouse floor and then load that fourth axis mill? So people are saying, let's move back to blue collar. Okay, if you want to do handcrafted things that you think an AI can't beat your quality in, all it has to do is train on what you do, and it will be able to beat you. All it has to do is train on what you do, and it's done. Whether it's an artist, whether it's a technician, whether it's a craftsman, all it needs to do is train on what you do. And it's done. So that is coming. Now, we know that utopia will be here. So what do we do? Do we dissolve money at that point? And I think the big point will be when we can synthesize food. So there are people racing, and there are printers that can print amino acid chains. So that's the basis of food. Now you got to do is make it taste good and maybe look like a hamburger, you know, or something, because it just looks like mush. You know, it's not, I mean, maybe it has the health components to it, but nobody wants to eat it. It doesn't taste good. So once they fix those 3D printers that can print food, And then eventually, like you see in Star Trek and some of these futuristic movies, you see a laser printing
Are you
them.
a spiritual person? Are you a religious person?
I am spiritual, not religious. So I do believe that there is something, but I don't participate in organized religion. I think the relationship needs to be personal.
Okay. So I'm going to take a plant, or we already know that plants feel, maybe not how we feel, don't have the neurotic, whatever, but they do. Okay. So
yeah, there's a charge that goes through them when you cut a branch off.
Well, more than that, right? The experience, does a plant have an experience? It does. Growing in the ground, someplace, it has experience of life that it goes through. And that experience is there something that it is absorbed into that plant? And so when you eat that thing, it absorbs into you.
Oh, I see.
You are part of nature, right?
Yeah, of course you're part of nature.
So if that's the case, right?
Is there any life to this plant?
Are you putting, yes,
food?
if you're going to grow it out of just sheer DNA,
right,
without any
chemicals,
without any experience of the plant for its own sake,
right?
You see what I'm saying? Like,
so
I can see, for example, taking a DNA sample, putting the sperm in the egg, and then taking that and putting into the mother, and then giving it life experience. Because I'm trying to say that I think that you can't disconnect life experience from
manufacturing.
Yes, because you kind of, does that make sense? What I'm trying
to say? It does.
I'm trying to say it in the right words.
On a purely scientific level, I can talk about the energy bonds in food and how that energy just comes from the sun, and it's literally light, and that's what we're made of, and that's what we are animated with, is light. And then I can talk about how when you manufacture food with those electrical bonds, with those bonds between the carbon, the hydrogen, and the oxygen molecules, because that's the molecule. That's why we say if we can't find water, there can't be life, or we're carbon-based beings, because it's carbon and H2O that holds sunlight through photosynthesis, and it's the sunlight that animates the animals. And we eat the animals or the plants. It's the sunlight that animates us.
Yeah.
So
what about the other parts? So you're talking about nature. Right. I'm talking about nurture. Right. So if a plant or an animal has to go through hardships, the wind, the snow, the this, the that, it goes through this. There's something that happens to that experience that is intaked by you.
Well, I understand the question.
Is that vital? Is that important? Or is that
all that would change? Is the energy in that food product from that plant or that animal?
Yes.
Is that different than the energy that we can manufacture in the same food product?
Thank you. That's what it is.
I've seen YouTube videos where people swear that if you microwave water and then let it cool off and feed it to plants, that it kills those plants. That you somehow killed something in the water, some life force in the water, and therefore it's no longer nutritious. Now, I don't think I believe those, because H2O is H2O. And it still carries the energy from the sun that's bonded into it. So if you give that to a plant, the plant is going to eat it, absorb the energy, and be nourished. So I don't know.
Yeah, but we do have such thing as
if it happens down the road and you're eating synthesized food for a couple years, then all of a sudden you're just this sickly, dying thing prone to all kinds of disease. Well, then maybe there's some empirical evidence to what that idea is. Yeah. And then maybe we need to start looking at getting whatever that is into that food.
One of the things I'm thinking about, it's not the actual experience. It is the perceived experience, what I call, right? It's like, what does, like that Japanese scientist who meditated, put meditators on different drops of water in different rooms.
Right. And there is observable recorded evidence
so right
that shows
there.
These things. Yes.
So
yes.
What you're saying,
the chaotic of how ice freezes when it's angry or happy.
Right. So the energy of that person with the music and the sound,
there's something
is in there.
There's something.
There's definitely something.
We don't understand it, but there's something.
So I'm talking about that type of thing.
I believe that field of study is called noetics, by the way. I believe that field of study is called noetics. When you're focusing your will on wilting a maple leaf inside of a glass box in California from New York. So that was the maple leaf experiment, where I think it was University of New York and UCLA, where they had maple leaves in glass boxes side by side with a webcam on them. And they told the students to focus on hate on the left one and love on the right one. You love everything about it. It's beautiful. And after like maybe a week, The one on the right was still vibrant, and the one on the left was completely shriveled. So, I mean, maybe it's the same kind of force. It's forces that we don't understand.
That's what I'm talking about.
When you're in a baseball diamond or baseball field and somebody across the way looks at you, you snap right to them. You look right at them. How? Out of all the people, tens of thousands of people in this stadium, when that person looked at you, how did you snap at them? So there are a lot of things that happen that we take for granted, that happen every day, that we don't slow down and observe. We're all in a hurry. We're not slowing down to observe the things like what you're talking about.
But isn't that what humanity is? That's what makes an interesting individual. Do you see what I'm saying? If they don't go through the life of life,
right,
what we call life, and you become this desensitized, perfect everything.
Well, don't give screens and AI to children.
Yeah.
There is something else. I tend to believe there is something else. And some of the things that we're doing aren't going to work. But some of the things we're doing are going to work. So we can't just start throwing them out because we don't know if they're going to work.
I'll tell you what it is, I think, the biggest part of it. I think that I had this conversation the other day with a family member about pain. And I constantly argue about this with people. And they're on the other side of the spectrum. My thing is pain is good for you, the one you choose. So you choose the pain you want that's good for you. So, for example, good pain is go train, work out. Hurtful pains,
training requires pain,
right?
Training requires
anything, in my opinion, in life. If you don't see that, my philosophy is that the highest level of pleasure is the highest level of pain.
I have similar philosophies. Like all the greatest things in life are on the other side of fear.
Right, but fear still is not.
It paralyzes almost everybody.
Right.
But if you can push through it, you'll experience the greatest things in life.
Right, which requires pain.
People avoid pain. Even on a bacterial level, bacteria will move away from discomfort towards comfort. So this is Freud.
See, I have a problem with that.
Well, that's the default setting. That's the default setting.
But that's the fear that I have. I think that default setting, it creates weak, non-creative, nonchalant, no life, I call it.
The best wine is made from grapes that struggle.
Yeah. Childbirth.
Yeah.
The most
life
painful
from
thing
pain.
It is what it is.
Yeah.
So
what do Marines say?
And AI is taking towards that, right?
Pain is weakness leaving the body. Is that what the Marines say? Pain is just weakness leaving the body. I like that one. Yeah. So I think pain and struggle are required. I mean, we've had phrases.
The thing is, AI is trying to remove it. That's my point.
There's a huge contingency of people.
Everybody's obsessed with creating comfort, right?
Right.
It's just let's have everything perfect. Let's have everything.
Because you can sell comfort. You can sell comfort. If bacteria will move away from discomfort towards comfort, and that's some of your basic building blocks, then I can sell you comfort. You'll buy comfort. Do you know how few people or how many people have gym memberships but never go to the gym? It's pain. Philosophically, their theoretical self, they believe that they can endure pain. They believe that they can, but truthfully, most people can't. They don't want to, and so they won't.
It would be interesting if AI decides, because he said that AI is trying to.
First thing is going to cancel all their gym memberships. Is what AI is
actually, I think it could be the other way around. What if AI says that, you know what, after long analysis, it tells you that, because you said it's striving for truth.
After long analysis, it took me about 3 seconds for me to figure out how humans work.
Because you mentioned that it's striving for truth. Yeah. If it's striving for truth and it figures out that truth, pain is a necessity.
Well, that might be a pretty sadistic AI then. Let's just start poking people.
Well, not like that type of pain. Yeah. Not a pain for the sake of pain. Pain for the sake of some purpose. Like even take any kind of like cancer. It's a pain, bad kind of pain, but it's trying to, there's a reason why it's there. In general, I think if people do good pain, bad pain doesn't happen. Yeah. I view it that way. Well, I don't know, maybe I'm wrong.
No, I agree. And I would say we wouldn't have the sensation of pain if it wasn't useful. If you touch a hot stove, you learn, don't ever touch that stove. A covenant is an idea of a promise and pain because people don't remember their promises. So if you're knighted on the battlefield, rise a knight, the senior knight takes off his gauntlet and backhands you with it, and you spit teeth out. You'll remember that promise because of the pain. So pain is also a tool. Yes. It's used to remember things. It's also an accomplishment. If you go to the gym for 2-3 hours a day for 5 years and you're totally fit, just shredded, you remember the journey because the journey was pain and that you pride yourself on it. You have a sense of accomplishment.
Right.
Pain equals accomplishment.
Right.
As well. Whatever doesn't kill you makes you stronger.
100%.
So pain, I would say, is required. And I think people should struggle. Hard work creates good character.
You think AI recognizes it?
No, I don't think. It doesn't feel pain, doesn't sense pain. It may, on a definition level, understand the benefits of it. But I don't think it could ever feel how we feel when we've completed a journey.
Yeah, but everybody who's inputting information is all looking for comfort.
That's right. My son just did a 14-mile hike yesterday. All his joints ache. He's still complaining about it. And yet he still has a strong feeling of accomplishment from the pain, from what he endured, for what he went through. Now, how is an AI going to have a feeling of accomplishment? The only way it could would be a software programmed that overlays its operating system. It'd be artificial because it'd be programmed.
Yeah, but we can kind of like with stats and information say that a person who does exercise this amount of time usually is better than a person who does not. So just looking at those basics.
If you get up at 5:30, hit the gym in the morning, and then maybe read a chapter or two in a book, you're going to be measurably more successful than anyone else who doesn't have those high discipline routines. Right. I think the biggest message, there was a military general spoke at a college graduation and says, just make your bed in the morning, because that's the first success. And now leads to the next success, the next accomplishment. You get addicted to success and accomplishment. And that's very true. Yes. If you're a runner and you're setting goals for yourself, you get addicted to those accomplishments. And then that bleeds into the rest of your life. You have to hit goals and accomplishments. Right. You're addicted to it. True. So those are better addictions. Yeah, pain is important. And since AI can't feel, it's going to have a different learning curve.
This is going to be interesting because everybody who's inputting information into AI don't come from the point of pain. They come from the point of pleasure, and they're seeking through it through comfort. That's the thing. I think the perspective is what I'm trying to say, is that the perspective is they're looking for pain through comfort. They're looking for pleasure. We're all looking for pleasure, but they're looking for pleasure through comfort, and I'm looking for pleasure through pain. I just don't think it works through comfort. I've had it, and I don't feel it.
You would be an exception. Most of our society thinks that pleasure and comfort, that comes from ease, ease of use, easy things. Yes. Where the truth is, nobody likes discipline, but discipline is the only thing that's going to give you everything you want. There is nothing else that's going to give you everything you want without discipline. But discipline is pain. Just like weight training. If you want that physique, you got to go through pain. But people avoid it because they don't want the pain. So their complaints are more powerful than their convictions.
Yes. So definitely training people to understand that whatever that mentality, and because we know the whole world is going to be using this software.
More comfort, more ease.
Oh, that's going to be bad.